Today we talk about 5 uncommon things that will give you great results and improve your sports performance. I am Jason Chin, and this is the Athlete Hustle Podcast. Before we get started, when you like and subscribe on YouTube or give us a good review and a 5-star review on YouTube or on wherever you listen to this podcast, that goes a great deal. It does a great deal to help me continue to help give you this great content. So anytime you do that, that really does help, and I do appreciate it. Thank you. Let's get into this. Today we're going to be talking about 5 things that's going to help you improve your sports performance, and this is stuff I've done myself personally, so I can vouch for it. The first one is hypertrophy. Now, hypertrophy isn't new to the sporting arena when it comes to strength and conditioning, right? Now, but what is uncommon is actually doing 10x10s for hypertrophy. Now, it's more common in Olympic weightlifting because it is what's called German volume training, and it was invented by the Germans to help their weightlifters get stronger, get bigger and stronger. So the way this works is that it helps put on a great deal of muscle, and it does an amazing job of that, by the way. But what it also what muscle does is it actually helps you get stronger, right? So it's the foundations for strength. Now, the reason why 10x10s, in my opinion, isn't done that often is, one, because it's a little bit time consuming. You've got to do 10 reps, which could take about 2 minutes, and then you got to rest for about a minute. That's 3 minutes there. And then you've still got to do that, 9 more times. So there's that, right? Then, but if you can get past that and past the idea that it is actually quite tough and athletes don't typically want to do it, but if you can sort of get your head around it and actually give it a shot, it does an amazing job of putting on muscle, by the way. It does an amazing job of getting stronger, but there's an unforeseen thing that I found when doing it that actually does a good job of, which is it improves the athlete's ability to do the exercise. So, and it only stands to reason when you think about it, because you're doing 10x10, that's 100 reps. 100 reps of one exercise, and you do that twice a week. That is, that's a lot of practice on an exercise. The other thing about it is that hypertrophy, as long as you do this correctly, has the idea that you're not trying to just do the reps, you're trying to do it with purpose. So you're trying to control the eccentric and trying to squeeze the muscles through the concentric. So that's a big difference to strength training. Because in strength training, you might be trying to control the eccentric, but you're still trying to do the eccentric fairly quickly, and you're trying to do the concentric as quick as possible. Even if it looks slow, you're still trying to do it fast. And you're still trying to do it with good technique, just like you are in hypertrophy. But the idea of trying to activate the muscles and trying to control your way through the entire movement is a little bit different to strength training, right? Which is what, as athletes, we're kind of used to doing. So when I had my guys do this 10x10 stuff twice a week for a month, then we went to doing 8 reps, like 8 rep max stuff. So still on the high rep end, but more trying to develop strength. What had happened is everyone got stronger, for one. And then for 2, they'd all a lot bigger by this point, so they put a fair bit of muscle on, which was amazing. And then, but the technique in the movement got a lot better. So they were able to control, say, in the bench press, for example, their eccentric phase was a lot better, a lot more precise. So hitting the same spot every time. And then when they pressed up, they were pressing up, and they weren't just driving the bar into the rack or going forward or going down towards their hips or coming up towards their face as they're pressing. They'll just really nicely controlled, which was a really nice surprise, and that goes a long way to improve someone's ability to lift heavier as well. So there's that. So 10 reps, 10 sets. So the exact way that we did it, we did 10 reps, 10 sets, 45 seconds to a minute in between each set. And we did that twice a week for each type of movement. So we were doing like squatting on Monday, We usually squat a lot more frequently when we're not doing 10 by 10s. But when we're doing 10 by 10s, I thought it'd be nice to kind of only do it twice a week. So Monday we squatted. Tuesday we did more upper body stuff. So Monday was squatting and so deadlifting and upper lower body accessory sort of stuff. The next day was going to be benching and upper body sort of stuff, and still 10 by 10s for the bench. And then just one exercise a week is a day is better for 10 by 10s in my opinion. And then the next day we did more accessory sort of stuff like pressing above head and smaller things. And the shoulder press was also 10 by 10. The next day was benching again, 10 by 10. The last day, because your legs are absolutely going to be shot from the first day you did squatting, your upper body seems to recover a lot quicker, is again squatting 10 by 10, deadlifting as well, but not 10 by 10. And then that was it. So we did every muscle group except for the shoulders twice, 10 by 10. And that made a tremendous difference. And we did that for a month, and by the end of it, everyone got big, everyone got strong, which was a lot fairly interesting, which is unexpected. So I get my guys to track every one of the records, and when they went back to doing 8 rep maxes, they smashed them. Usually by about 10 to 15 kilos. So there's that, right? So it's pretty cool. So the next thing we're going to talk about, so that was number 1. Number 2 is dynamic effort. So a lot of people don't actually lift weight to lift it fast. We just lift it thinking that, by lifting it, we're going to get stronger, and then because of that, we get faster and whatever else. But there's one thing to do that, but another thing to actually lift, and then lift with purpose, trying to move the weight as fast as possible. Right. So what we did is we took a page of the Westside Barbell principles, which is to do, say, around 75 to 85% of our 1 rep max. So you must know your 1 rep max, by the way. And if you don't, just test it real quick. And then next time you squat, you can try this out. So what you do is you get 80% to 75% of your 1 rep max, and you put that on the bar. You work up to it, put that on the bar, and then for about 2 to 3 reps, you're trying to move that weight as quick as possible. So not only are you lifting, around those percentages, which is, strength, you are also going to try to move it as quick as possible. So what will happen is your force development goes up, because not only are you lifting the weight now, you're lifting it fast. So your force development goes up. You start to develop faster twitch muscle fibers. Now, you can't really do this when you're lifting for 5 reps, because the first rep's going to be fast. The second rep's going to be fast. Third rep might be fast, but also might start to get slow. Fourth rep gets slow, and then fifth rep is slower. Right, and so you could have over 50% of the time being slow, and that's no good. So we want to be fast all the time. So 2 to 3 reps is optimal, and then you're trying to do that for as many sets as you can until you start to slow down, which is usually from around between 5 and 12 reps. Some people start to slow down. So you really got to watch your athlete, or watch yourself if you're going to do it. And then when you're finding that you start to get slow, it's time to stop, because again, we're trying to train speed and not to be slow. Okay, so watch out for that. So what we found with that is that a lot of our guys actually would normally go in there just doing strength training, and then I got them doing the speed training. They got a lot faster, right? Which was amazing. And so they started running faster in the field, started hitting harder, they were more aggressive, and that made a really, really big difference. So and don't worry, you can still, if you're doing 2 reps and you're moving it fast and you just do as many sets as possible, you actually find that it's the same amount of volume that you would normally do. You're just sort of splitting it up, and you're getting a different adaptation, which is, both strength but also speed. So that makes a big difference. So instead of doing 5 by 5, you can just do 5 sets of 2 or something like that, or 8 sets of 2 or whatever. It ends up being roughly about the same volume by the end, but it's more meaningful this way, and you'll find that you'll get faster and stronger. And we usually do that twice a week. We do that on the Monday once they finish playing sport for the weekend, and then we did it about a day before they go back to play sport again. And this really does activate the nervous system and gets them fired up. So the next one is activation potentiation. And sorry about that. I had a moment. I've been talking for about 2 hours now, so my throat got really scratchy, and I was going to get into a coughing fit, so I had to take a moment. Anyways, like I was saying, the next one is activation potentiation. Now, this was quite an interesting, game changer, but I would say that it's temperamental in the sense that its expiry date is quite fast. It works, but it doesn't work forever. But nonetheless, yeah, I got a PB because of it, or PR, if you will, for the guys listening in America. And it was quite interesting. So this one came from Travis Smash, and he said that what this will get you a PR, and it did, and it did. I'll tell you what. So I'm gonna let you know what that is, and it's good, but just be aware it doesn't work forever. Anyways, this is how it works. So we're going to use 100 kilos. We're going to say that's your 1 rep max. Okay, now just because it's simple. Okay, so we're going to work up to it, and you've got to be feeling good that day as well. Like, good enough to at least do your 1 rep max, but maybe not beat it. So what you do is you work up to it. You go up to, say, you can do this at 95, because 95 would be your last set before 1 rep max, and this is what you do. So you go 95, and then you're going to, before you do it, you're going to put 15% more on the bar. So you'll put basically, 110 kilos on the bar. Then what you're going to do is you're going to walk that 115 kilos out. You're not going to squat it. You're just going to hold it on your back for about 15 seconds. And then once you're done, you're going to walk that bar back in the rack. You're going to take all the weight off except the weight that you want to lift, which will be 95 kilos. You give yourself about a minute rest, and then you're going to put the bar back on your back, and you're going to go out and you're going to squat it. Okay. Now, because you had 115 kilos on your back, 110 kilos on your back, it's going to feel a lot lighter. Your muscles are a lot more activated, nervous system's ready, and then it just makes you be able to lift the weight a lot quicker and easier, right? So there's that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go up to 100 kilos, and you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to put the 100 kilos on the bar plus 15%, so 115 kilos. You're going to put that on your back, 15 seconds. You're going to walk it back in the rack. And also when you do it, I think it helps to have the same mindset as if you're going to just go ahead and lift it. Okay. So anyways, you're going to put that back in the rack. You're going to have a rest for about a minute, and then you're going to go back in. You're going to squat it, and then you do that again for your new PB, which is going to be 105, let's say, because that's a smart jump to make. And then you put about 120 kilos on the bar, walk it out. Again, brace yourself just like you're about to go ahead and squat it. And then you're going to hold it for 15 seconds. You're going to walk it back in. You're going to rest. You're going to take the weight off the bar. And then you're going to put, your 105 kilos on the bar, which is what you want to go. That's what your new PB is going to be. And you walk it out and you go ahead and squat it. Make sure you do have a spotter. Make sure you do have safeties or whatever to do this, because there's no guaranteeing it's going to work. But everyone that I've ever done it with has worked, and it works a damn. Dems does. Excuse me, I got hay fever apparently. It works amazingly well. So go ahead and give that a shot. But that's something interesting I learned. But the problem is the next time you do it, say you want to go get a PB the next week or a PR the next week, it doesn't work as well. And it works less and less every time you try. So if you do it months in between or something. Like maybe do it twice a year, let's say. I wouldn't do it every year. I wouldn't do it every day or every week. It doesn't work. It gets less and less potent every time you try. So there's that, okay? And it also doesn't work as well as if you kind of injured yourself and then you're trying to work back up to new maxes. Say if your max was 100 kilos and you're struggling with 80 kilos and you try it again, it doesn't work as well. I find personally it worked better on brand new weights you've never tried before, and that's where it works the best. So I wouldn't try it too often again. Maybe twice a year, if that. you know. So I know that that's a bit annoying, but it works, but not just that often. I guess your body just gets used to that idea of putting extra weight on your bar on your back. So, and it could just be a mental thing, but the idea of activation potentiation is that you're going to put more weight on yourself, and that's going to be the activation of your muscle fibers, your nervous system, everything like that. And then you're going to put the bar down, and then you're going to have this potentiation, which is going to be that all that is there, the potential for lifting that heavier weight is there, and then you go ahead and lift it. So it's activation potentiation. So the next thing we're going to talk about is power bands. So power bands are interesting. They can work a treat. I'm going to tell you a story about how we got it to work. So I had one of my clients, he had injured his leg, so we just had him squatting, benching. So what we did is we had him on a bench. We had a block on his chest, and his max was about 110 kilos, I think, at the time, something like that, 115 maybe. Anyway, so we had him working up, we just were doing reps at like 70 or 80 or something, and they were like, let's try something else today. We put some weight on the bar. We put some bands on the bar. So we got the red mini bands. So they're the ones that are a lot smaller, a lot thinner. And then what we did is we double choked them. So what we did is we had dumbbells, because we don't have the racks, so kind of like hold on to these bands like you would normally have. So we just had dumbbells on the ground, kind of heavy ones. And what we did is we double choked them. So instead of just having the top of the band on the bar and then the bottom of the band on the dumbbell, we wrapped the band around the dumbbell and put both ends on the top of the collar of the bar. So it equates to around 15 kilos on both sides. So it's about 30 kilos. Okay. And so what we did is we started working up as heavy as we could with that, with the block on his chest still. And what we did is we just kept going heavier and heavier and heavier, which is interesting. And because it's light when it gets to your chest, but it's heavy to get to the top. So we just kept putting more and more weight on. We end up getting to around 110 kilos, including the bands. Okay, so there would have been maybe about 90 kilos in the bar or something like that, or 80 kilos in the bar, and then and the rest was all bands. And then we end up getting, so that would have been Bailey's PB without bands, and then we just kept going heavier. So we got 120 kilos, 125 kilos, and then 130 kilos, which is well above Bailey's best. And we were just like, well, maybe you can't really lift that because we got the bands on. And then the bands don't really, make that they seem hard, but they're not really that hard. So what we did is Bailey still had something left in the tank. So what we did is we're like, let's just take the bands off and let's just see what happens. And so he took the bands off, and he lifted the weight without the band and just flung to the top super quick. And we're like, whoa, this is nuts. So we're like, okay, well, let's go up. And we put 100 kilos on the bar. That moved really quick. We put 110 kilos, which was his max on the bar. That moved really quick. Went to 115. That went really quick. 120, pretty good. 125, really good. 130, he got it. So there you go. So those bands in that situation, block on the chest and then benching, ended up giving Bailey about a 20 kilo PB. So bands can be used and they can really work, so there's that. They also work with deadlifts, and they also work with squatting too. So bands can definitely help. Now I'm going to give you the positives and negatives to it. That was one of the positives, that it works. The other positive is that it is something new, because if you're getting bored of just lifting regular weight, because squatting is something that you need to do because it helps your performance the most out of anything, but it gets boring, adding bands makes it interesting. Okay. And then if you are let's just get into the negatives really. So the negatives are just like, it's cumbersome, it's annoying to have to try to set up, because if you don't have the proper racks, you have to grab heavy dumbbells, bring them over to your rack, and then set up and blah 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 blah. So it gets annoying. And then so there's that. You've also got to have bands, and if you don't have bands, it's to go buy them. And then if you're a coach and you're trying to set this up for your athletes, it's just, and you've got a bunch of athletes going at one time, it can be a bit annoying to kind of like try to help the athletes, but also try to help this one guy with these bands. So there's that. But if you are going to set up these for most athletes, younger athletes, the red mini bands are probably best. You probably won't need much heavier than that. It's probably not until you get to like the 160 kilo kind of squats that you're going to need the green bands anyways, which is the next level up. And then the next level up above that would be the blue bands. So that's that. But otherwise, bands, if you got them and you want to know how to use them, use that as an example. Make sure you got a spotter, because you can't just, if you're benching, you can't just like shift the weight off either side, or if you're squatting, you can't just push it off your back, because that bar is going to come down heavy and fast, because you know how bands sling everything down to the ground real quick. So imagine that. So always have safeties, always have a spotter, because otherwise could be trouble. Don't save yourself for a big session or competition, right? So don't save yourself. What that means is there was a story about this powerlifter, and he trained months for this weightlifting, for this powerlifting meet. And the problem for him is that he was like, okay, well, I'm going to save myself for this thing, and I'm going to try to stay rested so I don't fatigue myself for the comp. So he would basically take the week off before competition, or just have like really light sessions, and then he wouldn't even go take the trash out, because he didn't want to walk up his driveway and fatigue himself at all. Now, I know you might laugh at that, but that's also fairly common. So, and I've been through that kind of mindset as well. And it's not good, because, let's just think about logically for a second. What happens if you take a week off the gym? You go, you end up feeling weak when you go back. Okay, so a week, after a week, you start to feel really, like you can't quite lift the weights you were lifting last week. What happens if you take 2 weeks off? You start to get sore, and then you feel like, during that week, you're definitely weaker, and then the next week you start to feel normal, and the week after that, you're sort of back to where you were. So that's 2 weeks. And imagine that if you take a week off, or you start to go easy the week of a competition, your body starts to adapt to that, starts to get conditioned to not doing so much. And then when it comes comp day, adrenaline does help get you through, but you're not going to be 100%. Okay, so my advice would be not to go for maxes, but don't take it completely easy either. Don't try to destroy your body. You still want to recover from everything you're doing. Just don't stop doing anything. Just keep working. It really is important you do that, because you will start to go backwards, even if it's just like a little bit. We don't want to do that, because on comp day, everything matters. Okay, so don't take it easy. It's what your body wants to do, but don't do it. Okay, so let's get into these bonus facts. So these are just some interesting articles I've read or studies I've seen. Okay, so here's the first one. Your chest has the highest count on average than any other muscle group, which is quite interesting, because you think your chest, I don't know, like I didn't really think my chest would have a great deal of muscle, like fast twitch muscle fibers, but the only time I ever use my chest is when I'm lifting heavy things anyways. So when you're lifting heavy things, that's when you need fast twitch muscle fibers. So it stands the reason why your chest would have fast twitch muscle fibers. Other muscles like your calves or whatever, they would have probably slower twitch muscle fibers, because they are used more frequently and for slower activities like walking, and more long distance activities like walking. But your chest, you can't, like, there's only so many push-ups you can really do for the average person, but the average person could also run long, like walk a long distance, and their calves tend to be slow twitch muscle fibers because of that. So that all seems to make sense, but it's just an interesting thing. When I read it, I was like, oh, that's odd. But then it all makes sense as well. So, and that also might influence how you want to train your chest. Okay, so light versus, so this is for your quads. This study was done on the quads. So heavy versus light for quad hypertrophy. So what they did is they went heavy for heavy and low reps, and they went light and low reps, and they saw the difference between those two. Now, it's unsurprising for a lot of people to find out that the light and high rep stuff cause more hypertrophy in the quads. Now, that's not the surprising thing. What was more surprising to me is that the 2 to 4 reps is what they were using for the heavy stuff and the heavy loads. And what had happened is they still got half the amount of hypertrophy they would have if they're doing 8 to 12 reps. So what's interesting about that is that it's a lot of people don't realize that in the low rep stuff, you're still getting a great deal of hypertrophy. It's half the amount that you would for 8 to 12 reps, but it's still a great deal of hypertrophy. So I think there's something to be said about that. So it's something to sort of think about, because it's just because you're going low, you're still getting some hypertrophy. So that can change the way you might want to program yourself or program for your athletes. So there you go. And so that one was from Flow High Performance. If you follow them on Instagram, they've got some really good stuff. Drinking alcohol halves your protein synthesis. Now, I've got an interesting story about this one, and that's the last one for today, by the way. So this is it, right? Very interesting story. So my mate, he's quite a strong guy. He was an athlete in the past, but decided to sort of retire. And then, so he's just sort of doing regular gym training. He started deadlifting, started squatting, all this kind of stuff, which was great. And he's actually quite talented when it comes to deadlifting. He's got good ling lengths for it and everything like that. So he was just a very good deadlifter. And he deadlifted for a while and started getting pretty damn good. Like got up to 250 in a deadlift, which was great. And I was like, man, that's really good. I'm gonna help you out here. I'm gonna give you a program. I want to see what we can do with you. And so he followed the program, and then he got up to 275 in a deadlift, which is amazing. It's a great deal. It's a big improvement, right? About 25 kilos. So that was really cool. And then I gave him a new program, and we're like, well, let's just give this another shot, see what happens. And then he goes and does it. He comes back, and then we test him, and he does a 290 deadlift. So that's incredible. That's really good progress. And so I was like, well, let's go. I'm going to give you a new program. And I was expecting him not to get as good a progress again because, like, as we know, we tend to do quite well, and then we start to taper down a little bit in how well we do, and we start to make slower progress. But that's fine. We expect that. So I gave him a new program, and he goes ahead. He does it. He comes back. We test him, and he just scores the same. And which was unfortunate, but that's just the thing, isn't it? I mean, it happens sometimes. The best, the worst I hope for is that my clients will be able to do the same, at least, if not more. So he did the same. So I was at least happy with the fact he did the same. So anyway, so what we did is we went to we gave him a new program. We're like, okay, well, this one you'll get some progress surely. So he does it, and then he does a little worse. I'm like, what is going on, man? What have you done differently? And he said he started drinking. He started drinking, a couple times a week. And I was like, Jesus, really? And this is what's happened? So there's a few things to this. One, the drinking does halve your protein synthesis. So your body will absorb half the amount of protein, and then uses that for its repairing and whatnot. So there's that. So but the other thing about drinking is that when you drink, it interrupts your sleep. So REM sleep is what we need in order to get recovery happening for your body. So he got about so let's say that you sleep for 8 hours. Let's say that the alcohol will still be in your system for maybe say 5 hours. That means he's only got about 3 hours to actually get REM sleep, and you only get 1.5 or 2 hours of REM sleep, and then he will wake up like an hour later or something. And then so whereas you need closer to 4 to 5 to 6 hours of REM sleep. So he probably wasn't recovering when he slept. He probably didn't sleep that much because he still had to wake up in the morning, but he'd probably up later because he was drinking. And not to mention he was training. He was training a lot, so that's very hard to recover from, even if you're not drinking. And then and then because of all this, he went downhill. He's made progress since, of course. Like, he hasn't just gone completely downhill, but he's made progress a lot slower. Now, this process happened about 5 years ago. Today, he's up to about a 305 kilo deadlift. He's got an Australian record in the deadlift now. But in my opinion, if he didn't drink as often, he would have gotten a lot heavier. I would have predicted probably around 330 to 340 after 5 years at least. That's not unreasonable. But there you go. So that's that story. So if there's anything to take away from that, is that fact that if you drink maybe once a week, if not less. If you're being very serious about your sport and recovering from the gym and trying to get the most out of it. So that's us done for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, or give us a good review on wherever you listen to your podcasts. Dude, thank you very much for coming in and listening, guys. I really do appreciate it. I'll catch you guys next time.